Hello there, sword friends. Today I have a bit of a show and tell video for you. I'm going to go over the Swordis.com website, the new Shadow Dancer Lite option that they've put on their website, and talk about some of the swords I get out the other end. The goal here is to make an entry-level sword, something that is on the cheapest options that I can pick from them, and then on the most expensive side, evaluate what comes out of the box, and hopefully it's interesting. The things I'm not going to do in this video is use them, break them. That's my normal shtick. I've done that with Shadow Dancer product in the past, though. I'll put some things in the description down below I think are worth watching if you're curious about their build quality in a destructive sense. But what I am going to do is go over the website, and I want to give a couple quick prefaces here. One, I've got these swords already in hand. Spoiler on the movie magic, I'm kind of going over the builder retroactively as of the recording of this video, rather than when I communicated what I wanted. As when I communicated it, the builder was in an earlier state. So anyway, if I seem like I'm making choices quickly, that's because I know what I bought already, but I did pontificate over them quite a bit when I initially was making my choices. So there's that. Also, the review samples, I didn't spend any money. If you think that makes me biased, at the start, or at least start-ish. And with that, I'm going to jump over to the website, and I'm going to show you this option. If you go to Swordis.com, which will be linked in the description down below, and you pick the custom katana option, you're going to go down here, and here are the three options for builders that they have. And I think they do an exceptional job with each one of these builders. It is kind of leading in terms of the builders that are available today. So Hanban Forge is still the entry-level option. I'll revisit them in the future. They still offer some stuff that is inexpensive and goes up to the expensive range. Shadow Dancer Lite. The complaint, as I understand it, was that some of the Shadow Dancer builder before was really expensive, and it got out of hand pretty quickly, so folks wanted a way to make it a little less expensive. And given that there's some sort of professional relationship between Shadow Dancer and Zisei, they migrated all of those custom options over to the Shadow Dancer Pro option, which now houses all of the more unique custom stuff. But to keep it a little less expensive, we're talking about the Shadow Dancer Lite option here. So that's what we're going to go into. And the first thing I want to point out is you pick the steel type, but they have cut out the length option. So right away, you're given this information here that the blade length is 28 inches, the handle length is 10 inches. And if that's not a good size for you, you got to go over to the Pro option to do that builder. But we're going to do the Lite builder today, and we're going to go through it twice, and hopefully we get some good swords out the other end. Spoiler, actually, I think they are quite good. Anyway. First, on the Lite option, since we got two options here, 1060 and 9260, I am going to pick the 9260 spring steel. I'm familiar with how Shadow Dancer works that. I think they do a good job. That's what I'm picking. Now, to keep matters relatively inexpensive here, the Shadow Dancer, I'm gonna go Shinogi Zakuri just because it's no extra money, and it's what I'm used to training with. But note that these are all additional costs, and if I were to pick them, it would increase the price, which is why I'm not going to do it here. And if also I wanted one of those things, it might be worth looking around on the website to see if they have an offering that I like that suits my needs without going to the builder here, because this is going to start adding up if I start picking some of these custom options. But again, keeping it cheap, going Shinogi Zakuri. No Hamon is the only option that they offer in 9260. So if I wanted any of these natural differentially hardened Hamons, I would have to pick a different steel option, which we'll do later. I'm going to pick the sharpened option because I like sharp swords. And then we have the wrapping, the Ito. That's the cord that wraps around the outside. And there's a bunch of different options here. We'll pick something swankier on the next one. But this one, we're going to go with dark blue because I'm making a blue swordish for the theme of this one. And we're doing the simple, no added cost option here. In this particular case, we have two different styles. I'll pick the opposite for the next build that I do, but this one I'm doing Katatimaki, the battle wrap. It prominently features Minuki. There's not, it's whatever you like. I can't say that one is better than the other in terms of fitting. Hishigami. Now, this is something I would absolutely encourage you to invest in. I'm not going to keep the price low, but if there's one option on the Shadow Dancer site that is unequivocally worth money every single time, it would be Hishigami Pro. The Ito is much tighter when you do this, the Ito being that cord wrap, again, that goes around the handle. If I choose this, which I'm not going to, somewhat irritatingly on my part, but I'm going to keep it inexpensive. I do think this is absolutely worth the $60. I know $60 goes a long way in other things that you might like, but keeping that Ito tight is very important on Japanese swords, and I believe very much worth it in this case. But again, we're not choosing it this time. I'm going to go with white Samigawa. That's the nodules underneath here. And I will also say that if you want to hide the fact that you're probably going to get some small nodule stuff on this kind of entry-level option here, black will hide those a little bit better. I'll pick black on the next one, though. So I'm going to go white on this one because I think it's going to look good. Now, this is a little bit of a tricky one here, and I don't know that they mention it in the text. The handguard, the Suba, that's the guard, and if I highlight the iron ones here, which I think are really quite exceptional, they cost $50. And that makes you think the Suba set is going to be more because it's $90. However, picking the Suba set ends up being a little less expensive. So if you're trying to save some money on this builder here, then just picking the set out of the gate is going to save you some. In this case, there's a few of them. In retrospect, I kind of might have gone Hoppy Bunny one because this actually looks pretty interesting and nice, but maybe another time. This time around, I went with this set here, and I will tell you, when I initially looked at these, I just thought it was kind of interesting. I hadn't seen these before. Shadow Dancer is picking some of the fittings that some of them I feel like I've seen before, like this guy, but some of them I haven't really seen everywhere before. Anyway, it's possible other manufacturers offer these. I think that it makes for an interesting sword. That's why I chose them. But in retrospect, the bunny one is kind of neat. Anyway, moving on. Here I don't have to pick anything, but you can see the Minuki would cost another 30. So right away, if I picked the Iron Suba at 50 and 30, I'd be at 80. Still cheaper than the 90 I paid, but here again, I have another 50 to add either one of these Fujikashira. Now, I will say that these are all unique and interesting things. If you want to spend a little bit more, I think being able to pick the sets is one of the unique features of this builder because it lets you tell an interesting story, really pick things that resonate with you. I'm doing a cost option here, which is probably not the best idea, but that was my objective. So I'm not picking any of these. I do think it's a good feature. So you go from $90 to like $130 to in terms of the difference between picking a set versus picking the individual pieces. It could probably go more than that, but anyway. The Habaki, this blade collar, again, going basic. And I do think as well, because those fitting sets have gold and silver in them, I could really choose either one of these, but I'm going to go with brass because it doesn't cost any more money. Brass Minuki, Seppa as well because of the cost. And then we have the Saya, and there's a few different options here for the $40 price point. And there are some that I have seen. I want to say that I've seen most of these, maybe not this one. I don't know that I've seen this one before on a sword, but it doesn't cost any more money. There's some interesting things here to say the least. But because I picked a blue handle, I haven't seen this. I picked a loud set of fittings. I'm going to go with this blue and white splattered scabbard here. I think that's gonna be a very noisy sword, a very, very braggadocious looking one, but that's what I am choosing. And to go along with this braggadociousness, I'm picking the white Sageo here, and that is going to more or less be white, and I think it's going to go well with the silver on the Suba, the white Samigawa, and then the white splatters that are on the Saya. Buffalo horn parts cost another $40 and also add some time. I'm not going to choose that this time around, and with that, I've got my $280 sword. I'm adding it to cart. You can see what my options were here. Now I'm going to go back to the custom katana builder, and I'm going to go and pick the next sword. And in this case, I'm going to pick the crucible steel. So there's a few different options here. Folded steel, I do think looks really schmancy. The S7 steel, I know, had some speculation. I have a couple S7 swords that I'm going to review and break eventually and send off to a lab, but I have it on pretty good authority that this is in fact S7 steel. The 1095 clay tempered stuff, 1095 looks really good when Shadow Dancer does it. They heat treat it well, and they also polish it quite well. But I'm going to choose the crucible steel. It's the bougiest option, and that's what this sword is about, is the bougie option for for Shadow Dancer. Now it only comes in Shinogi Zakuri. If I picked a different steel, the 9260, it's possible some of the others might come in a different steel, but here I'm stuck with Shinogi Zakuri, and I'm fine with that. That's what I like to train with and use. I'm going to pick Hitatsura Hamon. It is one of the more expensive ones. You can see that Notari is not much more, but the Kochoji as well as Mount Fuji and Hitatsura cost more. I don't have a lot of Hitatsura. I don't think I have any Hitatsura Hamons to compare and contrast with. So I can't say this is also something not everyone does well. Lots of folks advertise Hitatsura, and it's just an erratic choji instead of like actually being a Hitatsura Hamon. So I'm interested in seeing how Shadow Dancer does it. Haven't seen that from them in the past. It adds another $50, but I think it looks really cool. Can't say that it does anything from a performance standpoint. It looks really cool and erratic, but I think it would break just as quickly as a different Hamon. So I'm going to pick a sharp one here, and then I'm going to I'm tempted to do silk. I've seen the rayon. That's what I picked for the previous one. I've done and looked at silk in other options. What I haven't ever picked is leather, and I'm somewhat loath to do this because leather often sucks. A lot of folks use really cheap leather. The Shadow Dancer stuff does not look bad, but the leather that I often see used doesn't look or feel particularly good. So I'm somewhat cautious about doing that. In this case, though, the premium leather is something I've been curious about. I like leather handles. It's just really easy to not do well. And so that's why I'm cautious about choosing them from forges, but I'm going to give it a shot here because why not? And so it's 80 bucks. I'm going to pick Hanare Maki because I chose Katate on the opposite. And on this one, Hishigami Pro, absolutely going to do it. Again, I'd encourage you to spend it on any sword you get from Shadow Dancer. They're one of the few folks that offer this. Like, how tight do you want your Ito? I wish they just put it on every sword by default, but it costs money, so I understand why they don't. Now I'm moving on to the Ray Skin, the Samegao, and I said I'd pick black here. I'm going to go black on black with some blacky black. It's a theme for this sword just because it's one that resonates with me and I like. The Tsuba, I picked iron, and I am going to, naturally, if you know me, choose some swirly Mitsudomes. I don't know why I don't take the opportunity to make different choices with some of these swords. I always default to where are the Mitsudomes and how can I use them? But there's a lot of cool choices and there's more added. These floral designs here, these are not things that I see every company offering. Shadow Dancer seems to offer a few unique and tasteful things here that I really think are quite charming, light and fun. But I'm just stuck with my Mitsudomes, man. So that's what I like. But again, these options I think give you a lot of things to choose. Animals, symbolism, colors, things that really resonate with you. What resonates with me are swirly Mitsudomes, but if they're not your thing, I totally understand it. There's a lot of choices here to pick and tell a story with your sword that reflects your journey or the gift you want to give to somebody or whatever it happens to be. But what it happens to be for me are swirly Mitsudomes. So that is what I'm picking. Maybe sometime I will do this builder and choose something not swirly Mitsudome, but that day is not today. I'm going to also do silver as an accent. I really like black on black with some blacky black and silver. It's a charming theme to me. I've done it on custom swords in the past, and I happen to really think it's charming. Now, the Urushi imitation, these are the more expensive scabbards. There's some cool ones, again, that I haven't seen. I really like how Shadow Dancer does some of these things. This green one looks pretty nifty. I'm not going with a leprechaun-y sword. This has a lot of erratic patterns in it, also looks very pretty. But today I'm going black on black with some blacky black. So I'm picking this gloss black, classic gloss black with some glossy looking leather. I think it's going to be pretty smart looking. Going with the Japanese rayon silk, doing black because of course. These also, I want to point out, are nice and long. I've used these Sageo before. They come in colors. The colors stay pretty solid. The Sageo is a little harder to break. It's a little more robust material. These are nicer, and so I would say generally I like this feature. I've seen this before. If you're sensitive about your Sageo, I do like the offering here. Buffalo horn parts are also going to be selected because why not? And bringing our total to $873 going in the cart. So these are the swords that I picked, and there you go. So anyway, I'm probably going to forget some of the features. So if you see me rattling off the wrong thing or forgetting the prices, you have them here. But with this said, I'm going to transport into time and open the boxes and tell you what I think about them. All right, sword friends, it's magic of editing, and I have the swords in hand. What I can tell you is, going over some of the bits and bobs, this fitting set is a little bit more detailed than I initially expected when I first went through the builder. Now, it's not perfect, and the reasons I don't like these kinds of fittings are still consistent, but this doesn't look like it was applied with finger paints. Oftentimes when I see the gold and silver detailing, it is a sign of just muddiness all around and kind of just meh looking fittings often lathe. And this is not what I'm seeing here. It still is not as detailed and kind of crisp and nice looking as the iron fittings that they offer. So if you're looking for something with a greater sense of detail, I would absolutely recommend that you go with the iron fittings, which I will show you on a different sword in a moment. However, this has gold and silver detailing on it that is at least mildly carefully applied, and I can make out what it's trying to be, and it doesn't look like they colored over the lines in too many places. I can at least make out what the writing is. I can't read it because I don't understand it, and the texturing doesn't look like it's been sanded off in a number of places. What Shadow Dancer also does well is transition. So the Kashra down here lines up really well with the Ito. It doesn't come off and move. It's worth noting I haven't practiced with these swords. I haven't done any of that at this point in the video. I'm just taking them out of the box and then evaluating how they look. But nothing loose here. And also if I kind of pull on it, nothing is coming loose. Again, it budget swords if I'm talking about inexpensive kind of entry-level things, and $280 isn't that. That's kind of in the entry medium territory of swords. They tend to start, at least at this point, with inflation and tariffs and some of the stuff going on right now. It seems like the swords that were $60 are at least $130. The swords that were $130 though still are like in the $150, $200 range. $280 means that we're kind of in that territory where there's a lot of players, and some of them are pretty reasonable. Anyway, even at $280, sometimes the kasha comes off when you tug on it. That isn't happening here, at least not right away. The true test will be over months or years of practice does it come off. Right now it feels quite stable though. As I move down, the blue Ito looks reasonably well tied. The diamonds don't look like they wander around a lot. I'm often expecting these to be different sizes and shapes and all over the board. No Hishigami though means that I can move this a fair bit. So if I push on it with my fingers, I can absolutely move the kind of knots here quite a bit. Now, I would say that in the realm of reproduction swords, this is still quite passable. It's tight enough where it doesn't make me feel that it's loose. It's not, and when it's loose, what that means is as I'm holding the sword, if I feel the Ito moving around in my hand, I tend to white knuckle it and grab it really hard, and then I become fatigued quickly in my training, and that is not good. Also, it's very expensive to rewrap these things in the United States, so having something that comes out of the gate tight is important for the longevity of the sword. It's pretty common for the looser ones to wear out after a single training session. This doesn't give me that vibe. And now, again, I haven't trained with it, don't know for sure, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. The shape of the handle, incidentally, is also on the more slender side. Oftentimes, the mass reproduction swords tend to be a little beefier in the handle. I prefer something a little more slender, and that's what this is. It feels quite comfortable in my hand. The shaping is nice. I can make out that there's no Hishigami. It's a little bit on the thinner side. The Minuki in the Kitatemaki style, this battle wrap, are not glued in as well, so I can kind of freely move them around. That means they could come out, but your hands don't usually go there. So on a katana, you're going to hold one here, and generally one here. Seldom do you hold it over. But if I were grabbing this part of the sword quite frequently, it's possible that this would come out or move around or poke me or something like that. Worth calling out, it does have a little bit of a pokey edge here. I don't feel it if I'm trying to poke myself with it. I'm not being very successful, but I can successfully get these Minuki to move. It's not ideal, it's not the end of the world, and it's also pretty common, even on very high-end swords. Moving up to the Fuchi, again, transitions are pretty good. I feel a little bit of a lip on this side, but generally speaking, it fits really well. It doesn't kind of mushroom top over or muffin top over the mushroom top. I'm not trying to insinuate anything, but it doesn't kind of have bad transitions. It's got one little ledge on this side. It doesn't feel like it's going to be particularly problematic. And again, I can see detail in the Fuchi I wasn't expecting. This has, again, it's just less applied with finger paint than I was expecting for the cheapest options with fittings. The cheapest options were still $90, but they are better than expected. Also, before I just move on, I want to note the nodule size of the Semegawa is quite small here. Wasn't expecting it to be anything else, given that the budget was the focus here. And as I'm moving them, I can push the knots over enough to kind of make out the wood on the side, or the kind of panel line on the sword, but the panels aren't standing out super proud, which is kind of surprising for a sword with Hishigami. It actually looks pretty good for what it is. Oftentimes, if you don't have Hishigami, they will stand out, or you'll make out the panels, or if they put Hishigami in, sometimes it gets too bulbous. There's a lot of ways to tie this wrong, and for a very simple handle, they've done a pretty serviceable job here. Moving on to the Tsuba, this has probably the most detail. So underneath this gold detailing is supposed to be an imitation of Nanako, this very gingerly applied thing that you would see on Japanese fittings. It's very painstaking to put on, and always quite even and impressive for people that use tools that were worse than what you would find in the discount bin at Home Depot. Anyway, what I see here is like actually Nanako I can kind of make out, which for very meh casted fittings is somewhat surprising to have that level of detail in there. Again, it looks like there's a few spots where they colored over the lines, but I have a raised rim here. There's a fair bit of detailing. The theme is somewhat interesting. And as I move down to the saya, I have this blue speckled thing, and the speckles they stand out a little bit, like someone splattered them with paint, and I can feel them. They're not like scratching off, but they do have a mild texture to them. It also doesn't show fingerprints super easy. It's kind of glossy, but at the same time, like I don't see my handprints in the light here standing out. And I think overall the fitting set that I chose, it's a little loud. At the same time, I think it blends actually pretty well. As I stand out, my eye doesn't go to one thing in particular, but there's a lot of loud things going on. We have some silver detailing on here, Manuki that are pretty big and also quite shiny. The raised rim with a lot of details, lots of speckles, a bright white Sageo. I think all of this, though, at the same time, is reasonably handsome looking, and it's pretty decent. It doesn't fall out immediately, but this one's a little bit on the loose side. I could shim that. That's something I could resolve, but honestly, it's not. So long as when I bend over, it doesn't immediately fall out, that's generally good. I would like it a little bit tighter, though. The blade, being simple 1060, the least expensive option here, is there's not really a lot to talk about. It's a Shinogi Zakuri blade. It has a bohi in it, and it actually has a Yokote line, which has been polished or more or less sanded on. It doesn't have the same attention to detail as the polishing on other swords do from Shadow Dancer, but it's got a Yokote on it, which sometimes is a feature people charge for. So that's on here. It's got a bohi on it as well. I don't remember if I got to choose a bohi in the option or not. It's possible I did or didn't. I can't remember, but it has a bohi on it, which is worth noting. If it was on there, I chose it. If it wasn't, then be aware that it comes with it. Other thing I'll note is Shadow Dancer's habaki. This looks like the same kind of brass habaki that you see everywhere else, but it has a little bit better depth and dimension. It's like pyramided and domed a little bit. It's not anything that is grandiose on the grand scale of things, but it is nice to see that the similar attention to the habaki on very entry-level swords is still here, and it's not something they exclusively reserve for the really high-end stuff. This one, I didn't choose buffalo horn parts. What I see is kind of like a resin ring around the side. It does a fine enough job, and then a little resin at the end. The saya feels thin. I mean, I wouldn't mind training with it. It's not raspy. Doesn't really seem to catch anywhere. It could be a little better fit, but generally speaking, it doesn't seem too loud. It seems like it's going to draw and fit together reasonably well. Yeah. All right, sword friends, so this is $280. Do I think it's worth that amount of money if I were to pay for it myself? Well, the short answer is yes, I do think so, but I would have to value two things in particular. One, that I get to pick out the features specifically, and two, the additional attention to detail that Shadow Dancer tends to put into their swords. So the first one being that I picked something loud and kind of different, and I don't know that there's a one exactly like this that Shadow Dancer sells. So if there is, then I would probably find that one was a little less expensive. There's a cost to having individual custom swords have to be assembled, and so there's a little bit of a premium for it. I don't think it's too much, but it does have to be a value to you. If you go on the Swordis website, you can probably find something made from 1060, and I'm guessing there's a similar sword with a similar saya, and if that suits your fancy, then you'll probably save a little bit of money. But if nothing there really resonates with you, you like some parts of one thing but not the others, then you can find something on the custom builder that resonates with you, that tells a story that you appreciate, that makes the gift more compelling. Whatever it happens to be that makes you want to pick the stuff out, there's a premium for it. I don't think it's that much, but it does have to be a value to you. The second thing is, maybe it better compared to other vendors out there. This sword is made of simple through hardened 1060, and that can be had in much less expensive swords. Worth saying that it can be had in much less expensive swords on Shadow Dancer's site as well, or on Swordis' site, or made by Shadow Dancer. Fundamentally, they will sell you something very similar for less than $280. But that's about the least expensive that I could make it on the builder. If I compare this to other builders that may be an equivalent price, well, I think Shadow Dancer does a better job of transitions. One thing, the Ito is tied quite a bit tighter than I've seen from some other vendors out there in similar price points. The transitions and how they meet the Fuchi Kashira, how the Suba lines up, how the blade is tensioned, how it draws in and out of the scabbard, how the scabbard is a little bit more narrow instead of beefier, the shape of the handle being a little bit more Japanese as opposed to a little bit beefier. Those are things that Shadow Dancer tends to consistently do across their line, And you can probably buy a Shadow Dancer sword and be assured that some of those features are going to be in there. And so if that attention to detail is important to you, then Shadow Dancer as a manufacturer is worth investing a little bit more in. Now, that said, if I was looking for a really budget sword and I was really focused on getting the cheapest sword possible, I don't know that I would go with the custom builder. I would maybe take the sacrifice of something I don't like to get a sword from the Swordis site that was a little bit less expensive, but had the blade steel I wanted and was the size I wanted. All right, sword friends, I'm going to move on to the premium offering here. And the premium offer was $800 and something. I can't remember off the top of my head, and I chose all of the options. Now, there are lots of options if you want to get something more budget focused, and there were certainly more options you could choose to make it expensive here. But I don't know that I could actually make a sword on the Shadow Dancer Lite option more expensive. I think this is kind of about as expensive as it gets. So for that, I'm going to go through the Kashra down here. First off, I'll say the fitting is very detailed. Just the little Nanako ring on the outside of this fitting is very good. I can make out the swirly Mitsudome, and it has very crisp lines inside here. Whatever they're doing to make these fittings, I've seen this fitting a number of times over the years from Shadow Dancer, and all of them have been very crisp and well done. So I like that much. If that level of detail is good, then going with the kind of iron fittings is probably a solid idea for you. The Kashra at the end also uses a slightly different Shidodome than other folks do, as did the less expensive offering. I forgot to mention that. Transitions are great. Now, I've said how great the transitions are with Shadow Dancer in a number of different videos. They're pretty consistent on it. I'm a little bit more impressed on the leather side, though, because very often I'm somewhat apprehensive to have anyone give me leather, despite the fact that I like it, because very often it's very shittily done. It's loose, it overlaps, it feels tacky. This leather not only feels great, but Shadow Dancer has done a very solid job tying it up. This feels nice, and it also they've done a very good job in tying it. I don't see any kind of muffin topping over here. I actually said it right rather than mushroom stamping. Anyway, it's transitioned quite well both on the Fuchi and the Kashra down here. The Ito itself is honestly not as tight as their silk. So I will say that if I grab a Shadow Dancer, any other Shadow Dancer I have with Hishigami Pro off the shelf, and I try to move the knots, they're pretty consistently very tight. This leather, which admittedly is harder to deal with, is very tight, but it's not as tight as their silk is. In that I can if I'm forcing it, I can kind of get some of them to budge a little bit. Now the good news is the knots aren't coming undone. This is not bad, and it is still much better than I would expect for leather. If you like leather, which I do, this would actually be something I would choose. It makes me feel like it's not loose, it doesn't feel like poor quality, and it's actually tight and feels like it will stay that way for more than 5 minutes, which is not something, well, 5 minutes is hyperbole, of course, but very often the leather doesn't feel great and it starts to disintegrate. Anyway, I'm just not a fan of most leathers used. This premium offering, I'm not sure about the other leathers, but the premium offering here for $80 is something that I would feel comfortable paying. And the Hishigami Pro, I can see that they're in there, and it certainly is tight. The Hishigami Pro, incidentally, is again one that I rave about. A lot of the Shadow Dancer swords that I have had Hishigami Pro, and every time they put it in there, it makes the Ito tighter, and that is absolutely worth it. So tight Ito is your connection to the weapon, right? When you're holding this in your hand, making the handle feel really stable increases your comfort level with it. If it feels loose, you tend to grip it harder, you fatigue quicker, it's more expensive to wrap, all the things I've already said, but it's just also really shitty when it comes undone and it looks tacky. And if you're cheap like me, you're not going to spend hundreds of dollars to have it rewrapped, so you're going to glue it or lacquer it, and it's going to look crappy, and then you're going to resent it every time you stare at it. I'm projecting right now, but you get what I'm saying. This is, to get to the point, very good. The black lacquer under here, again, I can make out small Samegao, but I can't make it out as easily. Like I said, the black lacquer kind of hides the fact that these are small. And as I'm pushing these around, I can't actually make out any of the panels. I can't push them far enough to do that. So that's good. Swirly Mitsudome fitting underneath here, also, I can make it out. It's very nice. The Fuchi, also very well done here. The transitions, I don't see any overlap on either side, so this brass fitting they fit on better than the less expensive set over here. And again, high quality, great detail. The Swirly Mitsudome fitting This is a Tsukashi style Suba, and it has a kind of a swirly Mitsudome cutout on it. It's not one that I think I've had from Shadow Dancer before, one they've offered I think for a long time, but not one I don't think I've had from them. It's nice, it doesn't chew up my fingers, and it's got swirly Mitsudomes on it, and it's light and lively, and I dig it. I think it's very handsome. I'm not seeing sharp ledges or anything like that. It's simple, but the cutout is elegant and well done, and fit on there well. The saya, black gloss, fingerprint magnet, of course. That's just how gloss is, so I'm not holding it against it. Now I asked to get the horn parts on here, and I can make out the horn parts here. They have put them on, and they're quite nice. The Koiguchi area over here, well done. The side is on the thinner side. Now on one hand I like that, it feels elegant and nice. At the same time it is really thin, so if you're a practitioner and you're aggressive with your saya, then bear in mind that the Shadow Dancer tends to make them on the thinner side, which is more a pro than it is a con, but something that some folks might not like. It has a gentle taper as well. Very, very well done, and it's not loud. I feel it's not catching. Maybe need to clean it out. I just got it too, so I haven't used these at all. So anyway, I don't really hear any. It's pretty quiet, honestly. For an off-the-shelf sword, this is pretty solid for a not custom size. Sometimes what I'm looking for when I do this, incidentally, is does it catch if I kind of twist the sword and don't put it back perfectly? Is anything grabbing? Is the tip stalling it? Is it going? Now, when you're training in any Iaido, you draw the sword, and it's supposed to be very quiet. And if your sword is raspy and touching the sides, it's almost impossible to do that. If it catches in spots and you have to put it in absolutely perfectly, that is also not good. This is gliding in pretty well, all things considered. All right, sword friends, in talking about the Sageo, I chose the more expensive option here, and this Sageo is frayed in places. This would be about the only complaint I've really seen so far. There are little spots where there's fray, the thread is broken or something, and there's little frayed bits that are coming out. Now, it's nice and long, and it's still a good quality Sageo. I could still absolutely use it, and frankly, it's kind of going to get frayed and whatnot anyway if I'm going to use the sword, but out of the box it really shouldn't be. I'd venture a guess if I called Shadow Dancer, they would send me a new one, or Swordis. I would mention that this came frayed. I'd send them a picture, and I bet they would take care of it. Now, I don't know how it came this way, because the box arrived safely. The sword was in a silk bag. The silk bag was then wrapped in another plastic bag, and it didn't look like UPS even kicked it all the way here, which is a amount of achievement for them, I guess I'll say. So I don't know how this fraying would happen, but I'd venture a guess that this tells me that people are looking at things. I'd venture a guess something about shipping, maybe rubbing on the silk bag, or I'm not sure. But the Sageo came frayed, and fragged would be worse if it was exploded by a grenade or something. This doesn't look like it was grenaded, but it does look like some fibers have been pulled up, and that is unsightly for a very expensive sword. That shouldn't happen. Fortunately, relatively easy thing to remedy if the folks at Swordis would send another one, which I bet they would do. So, other thing to note is that this has silver Shidodome in it. This is not something I actually mentioned on the cheaper one, so something I should switch over. On the less expensive one, I chose brass, and it has brass in it, and the brass ones are even, I don't think, yeah, the brass Shidodome on the less expensive sword are loose and not glued in, but they are brass, and I chose brass Seppa. On the silver version, they are silver Shidodome here, and silver Seppa, so they actually matched it. That wasn't something I got to choose. I'm really glad. It's kind of jarring when you choose silver over here and then there's brass stuck in this hole. It's also glued in, which is good. Oh, maybe that's how it frayed. This is something in there is chewing stuff up, so maybe it happened when they put it in. Not sure, but something in there is chewing things up. So the problem actually might be a little bit more severe, because if they sent me a new one and then I put it in and it just ripped it up, that would not help anything. So I bet if I take this out, it's probably something I need to get a file in for, but that would mean you need to get a file. So it might be more that I would need a Sageo and to peel these Shidodome out and see what could be remedied, or get a new saya entirely. Not that the saya is bad, but if these are glued in and you don't have a file or the skill to kind of make them smooth, then you might be dealing with frayed Sageo. That's unfortunate. Not something, incidentally, I've had I don't know, a number of Shadow Dancer swords. This is the first time I've seen this, so I'm going to call it an anomaly more. I'm comfortable doing that, given the volume of Shadow Dancer swords I've seen, but that is an unfortunate miss. Yeah, it looks like something in there is toothy and grabbing and fraying the Sageo. So I'm guessing it was put on and it probably didn't get noticed, and that's why it got sent out that way. But all that said, I'm going to move on and talk about the blade. This was a more expensive crucible steel done in Hitatsura, and it is lovely. The lines are really clean. Worth calling out, this one doesn't have a bohie. So I don't remember if I glanced over the bohie option, but this one does not have a bohie. So worth calling that out. The bohie is present on the less expensive one that I chose with 1060, and I can't recall in going through the builder if I selected to have or not have a bohie. But anyway, no bohie, and the hamon stands out pretty prominently. In some lights it comes out really well. In sunlight it really is quite blingy. And the steel, I can make out lots of little banding effects along the surface of the steel, which is brought out by, I believe, the crucible steel that I chose. It is very, very nice looking, and I like the erratic pattern. It's quite lovely. The Kasaki doesn't have the same kind of Kasaki that I've seen them polish on some of the higher end blades, but it has a kind of geometric ikote, but not like a line exactly that shows. It's still really relatively well done. The silver habaki and seppa are quite nice. They fit well together. And it also feels really good. Like, this locks into my hand. It feels comfortable. It moves really well. It's I would say, medium light in terms of how it feels overall. And I'm saying, what does that mean? Well, sometimes you pick up a sword that's this size and it feels like it has authority in the chop. It's difficult to recover. That's kind of right in the medium. Sometimes you pick them up and they're really choppy and they're really hard to control, and it feels like it's hard to start and stop, and it's more pulling you along. Those are on the heavier side. This is heavier than an Iaito, right? So as I draw it, I feel like it has more authority. At the same time, I feel like I can control it. I can get the tip where I want. I can be very agile with it. It feels very connected to my hand. So heavier than an Iaito, but not as heavy as a lot of swords, or at least how nimble it feels. And part of that is because of the size restrictions, and Shadow Dancer's also got a good command of distal taper here without being too much. It's still rigid in a katana, but anyway, feels very pleasant in the hand overall. And I think the hamon is quite lovely. All right, sword friends, so is it worth the $875 that is asked here? Short answer is yes. There's a lot here that I really like, but before I talk about that, this would have to be addressed. The Sageo fraying and getting caught, basically the Sageo is catching on the Shirodome inside the Kurigata, and it's causing fraying. What does that mean in English? That means this cord here is catching on the washer here inside this nubbin here, and it's breaking, and that's not okay for $900. I am confident, though, however, that Swordis would take care of this to my satisfaction, whether it took a new Sageo or maybe even a new Sai entirely with a Sageo. Also, I'm confident that you're probably not going to run into it. I've had, I don't know, like a dozen or 2 dozen Shadow Dancer swords, and this is the first time I've seen this issue. So I'm confident that it's not common. I don't see people on the internet complaining about it. It's the first time I've encountered it. And Swordis has good customer service. I'm confident they take care of you. So provided that is true, yes, there are a lot of things here I like, but you also have to value. So I got to pick swirly Mitsudomes and put them everywhere. Again, there's a slight premium that you are paying to have all of the things that you want in a story that resonates and exactly the things you're looking for. But you're also getting them at a quality. This is one of the first times I've had swords wrapped in leather that I really actually liked from, kind of a mass production manufacturer. The leather actually feels good. It is supple and nice feeling. It has a high quality kind of sensation and grippiness to it, and it's also tight and doesn't feel like I'm going to be throwing it away in about a year. The fittings are crisp and nice. The transitions and all of the fitment is quite nice. The saya is slender and would be comfortable to train with and doesn't feel bulky, if that's something you like. And the blade is Hitatsura, and actually Hitatsura. And there are companies out there that advertise Hitatsura, and they make more or less just a weird choji that is not Hitatsura. And this actually is so giving you what you advertised. I know irony is something that I also appreciate. So they've pulled off something challenging here and done it in a very solid way. So provided they've addressed this issue, which I again am confident they would, then I would say this is absolutely worth the money. I am crazy about swirly Mitsudomes. They put a lot of them on here. I don't think I could buy another sword at this quality with this aesthetic, at least not in anyone that's going to send it in this century. So
Yes, I do think it is worth it. But again, it has to be a sword length that resonates with you. If you are not picky about the length of sword, this is a great builder for you. If you value the way things are fit together, this is a good builder for you. If you want to tell a unique story with some good fittings that aren't necessarily offered anywhere else, this is a good builder for you. If you're looking for a custom length, whether it be in the handle or blade, then you got to step up to the Shadow Dancer Pro, and it's going to cost a little bit more money. So this would not be the greatest option there. But if the size is okay and the options kind of hit a button with you, then this is a very solid offering, and I am very happy with the quality. But again, got to value those things. If you don't, there's probably other ways to spend your money. Anyway.
Sword friends, just to bring one point home, you really do have to value the option to choose all of the things, or at least be willing to pay a little bit for it. In my case, I went on the Swordis website and found 3 swirly Mitsudome katanas that were very similar to what I built. Now, one of them was actually black on black with some blacky black, and it was about $500. It didn't have the same steel, it didn't have the same hamon pattern, but it did give me a very similar aesthetic for less money. The next one actually had the Hitatsura hamon, it had the same swirly Mitsudome fittings, but the color scheme was quite a bit different. Now, it was a little bit less expensive, not a lot, so I would have to pay a little bit more to get that black on black with some blacky black theme. But there were some offerings that were less expensive that saved me a little bit of money. There was also an offering from Zise that cost a little bit more, but it gave me some interesting maki style, the wrapping of the leather ito, but it didn't have the swirly Mitsudome Fujikashira that I liked. It had an interesting maki that wasn't offered on the builder. It did also have a Hitatsura hamon on it and a Samegawa wrap saya, which are features that cost a little bit more money and that frankly I'd probably be happy to pay. So there might be something that really suits what you need and drives a better value on the site that's already built or is made in larger batches. If you want a small batch thing, a one-off thing made just for you, it comes at a slight premium, and you do have to value that offering to justify the price.
That's all I've got. Hopefully it has been interesting to you. If you're curious, there will be a link in the description down below. I'd encourage you to check out the builder. I'm very happy with what came out the other end myself. If you have any questions, throw them in the commentary down below. I'll do my best to answer. And also special thanks to the folks at Swordis and Shadow Dancer for sending these my way, letting me pick out cool custom-y things. Hopefully it was fun to see. Cheers, and thanks for watching.